Personally, with choosing adoption, absolutely not. That was something I was very steadfast before, during, and after. And that isn't the case for all birth parents. There can be those and not that I didn't have what ifs. I mean, it's important to acknowledge, like, of course I've, kind of had these like fantasies and daydreams of if I was a mom, and of course there was the what if. And, sometimes longing for that, so desperately wanting to be the one, soothing her when she's upset. That existed. But I never for one second doubted if adoption was the right choice. And I mean, to be honest, I think that's a God thing. I don't think that would be from within. I think that was, God, but.
I knew we wanted to adopt. We have adoption in our family. We have cousins and family members. And so my husband and I, before we married, we knew we both wanted to adopt at some point, but we felt we were going to have biological children and then adopt. And we were able to have one biological child and then really struggled. And so, it just seemed to fit. But we were open to it from the very beginning because I have the most amazing cousin who is adopted, who is just a joy and a treasure, and he's a big reason why I wanted to have an adoption in our family.
This seems, for someone probably looking on the outside, this seems like a lot of work.
Anyone who's willing to listen to me talk as much as I do, yes.
That's a lot of work.
So do you recommend this for people? I mean,
100%. Look, it's complicated, but what life is not complicated?
Right.
What family is not complicated and pieced together?
Any relationship worth having, anything worth having, right, is going to be hard and like worth working hard for. Mm-hmm. Whether or not that's a career or, a relation, whatever it is. And so it's worth, you don't, I guess, think about how hard it is when it's worth it. Does that make sense? Again, I can acknowledge that it hasn't been easy.
Yes.
How do you decide on what you share with each other?
I mean, honestly, transparency. We say the hard things, and we have to. We have to say, I need some space. I need some time. We have to be able to say those things in order to put our daughter first.
Yeah. And I think we are in a unique circumstance where, Rachel and her husband have really become mentors for my husband and I. And so that, I think, also is, like, outside of our daughter, we have a relationship, which that just organically happened over time. And that's not going to be the case for everyone. So we probably are a little even more transparent than your average adoptive mom, birth mom relationship, just because we've developed a relationship outside of her.
But that took time.
Right.
That's something that, we didn't happen overnight. Of course, we loved her overnight. We, all of that stuff. But we had to work toward this. And like I said before, we were 6.5 years into this, and we have to work.
Yeah. Because we're human, we're flawed.
Yes.
And I can't imagine you're going to get angry with each other.
Yes.
And as the adoptive parent, you get angry at something she might do. How do you work through that as opposed to saying, she's not going to see our daughter?
So that's something that my husband and I have really talked about. We don't ever want to close that door again, ever. COVID was kind of an example of this, where we wanted to do a visitation, but of course everyone has COVID, and so we wanted to social distance, and so we were literally standing across the yard, waving at one another, and it felt so wrong for us. And I know that's a little different circumstance, but we left there and we said we will never deny her again. And I called Emma and I said, Emma, that felt so wrong, and she just burst into tears because it had brought up all those fears of hers of us closing that door, and it's something that's important, again, being able to be transparent with her, that if it's not okay for our daughter, that we need to step back. I want you to know that we are here, but we need to step back for our daughter. And so we have to Emma and I have to be able to allow ourselves the capability to do that, even as hard as it would be with transparency.
And what was so great about, you know, that circumstance that was challenging was she allowed me then the space to say, yeah, that hurt. And I know that this is out of your, you know, COVID. Like, no one had, you know, it was just chaos. And so it was like, not that was her choice in the sense of, you know, trying to figure out how to handle the situation, but for me to say, yeah, that brought up a lot for me, because it was a reminder that you have the ability to keep me from my daughter. Even though I know that won't happen, that's the biggest fear a birth parent can have. You know, especially that has, you know, an open adoption, that, you know, even though I don't like the whole power thing that we talked about, it does exist. The adoptive parents do have the ability to sever all ties. And that's terrifying as a birth parent. And COVID brought that up. There was this ability, you know, not because they wanted to, where they could keep her from me or whatever. And that was probably a very hard.
That was a hard season.
Because we both felt helpless in that. But we just gave each other the space to feel it and express it. And I think that was important.
Did your daughter get a space to feel it and express it?
She's still very young.
Yeah.
And so I know there's going to be hard times where we have to help her work through some of the things about processing adoption and processing her story. But thankfully I have a partner who's going to help us with that. And we'll just take it one day at a time, because it's life. That's what you do.